made a decision to reject all bids and the rebidding project. So that's back out for bid right now. In the meantime, if the roadmaster needs materials, he's utilizing something called CoStars, which is a statewide contracting, which allows him to make purchases outside of the primary, the standard bidding format because they're bidding in the state.
And when is that bid due?
That bid is due April 18th.
So, Supervisor Hexer, you're correct. At the last meeting, the board tabled the annual contract for highway equipment rental. And in order to make sure that all the documentation was correct, we now have that set. At that meeting, the chairman recused himself. He abstained from participation. He'll do that again tonight. So that's ready for action by the board.
Then I'll move to accept the bid.
I would second that.
Any discussion? We'll vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to the chip seal program. Bids for chip seal were opened last week. Prices from the two bidders were extremely close. Asphalt Industries was the lowest responsible bidder. The board has been provided a tabulation of bids and a letter of recommendation of award for chip seal for calendar year 2019. The total bid price is $175,887. Also provided to the board tonight in your packet is a map of roads chip sealed each year through 2018, a map of roads to be chip sealed this year, and an overall map of road conditions as of January 2019. Perhaps on another occasion we can discuss the relationship between these maps and the pavement management program and its successes to date. But at this point, it's to the board that they can make a motion, if they care to do so, on awarding the chip seal bid to Asphalt Industries.
Sorry, Carol, can I just ask you who did this job in 2018?
AMS, the second bidder, did it in 2018. Asphalt Industries did it for us in a prior year. So we're familiar with both bidders. Yeah, they've both done a good job in the township. Yes, ma'am.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any questions?
Okay.
Vote.
Oh, sorry.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Continuing on with information, the Chapter 94 report, which is an annual report of the sewage collection, conveyance, and treatment facilities that are operated by the township. That report was completed and submitted to the DEP in March. The report covered the period that included startup of the new plant and decommissioning of the old, and associated permit changes to both total allowable flow and effluent criteria that came with that changeover. The overview of the Chapter 94 report is this. Sludge hauling rates are up. Meter readings were higher this year with wet weather and rain events. There were some high meter readings on days that did not coincide with rain events. These were actually related to the transition from one plant to the other. And I think it's notable that the operator successfully kept plant discharges in compliance with the permit effluent requirements, including the new limitations, which were more strict, throughout the entire calendar year. I think the Public Works Director is going to talk more about this, but I have noted in my report that a plan of proposed Village Drive speed tables was provided to the township, and that plan details the speed table locations, dimensions, pavement markings, and signage. And then finally, to talk about the acceleration and deceleration lanes on Zieglerville Road near Goshen Road. They've been a topic of recent discussion. Looks like they were a topic earlier tonight. Some residents have discussed or requested that no parking restrictions be lifted in these areas. Now, I had evaluated geometry at these locations relative to available site distance from various locations. But frankly, in addition to preserving available site distance for, not only for vehicles leaving Goshen Road, site distance needs to be maintained for each of the driveways accessing Zieglerville Road from the residential parking lots, and a private driveway at the top of the hill where the deceleration lane begins. So when you put any parking in those acceleration or deceleration lanes, you're going to reduce available site distance. And we had done a study, if we had reduced just to the minimum required site distance for 25 or 30 miles per hour, which is the speed limit along that area, we might be able to fit 1 or 2 parking spaces in there, but frankly, I don't recommend at this point changing the no parking signage and ordinance to try and squeeze in a space or 2 along the acceleration and deceleration lanes on Zieglerville Road near Goshen Road. It would be an extraordinary expense to try and gain just a couple of spaces, and frankly, it will ultimately decrease site distance in that immediate location, so I'm not recommending that. So that completes the evening's engineering report, but I'd be happy to address questions on township engineering matters.
You have any questions? Yes. Yeah, want to come forward?
Sure. I live Genter from Brumley Road, 24 Brumley Road.
Sorry, can you spell your last name?
Pardon?
Can you spell your last name?
Gentner. My first question is for the township manager. Did you receive any communication? Usually there's communications read prior to, or just after the start of the meeting.
Was it about, well, one, I received a letter from Spring Mountain Homeowners Association. Is that what you're referring to?
That's
Okay.
correct, yeah.
I was going to have that at the end of the meeting.
At the end of the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Any other questions for the engineer? Yes.
Joe Shinsky, Village Drive. The question I have is more for the board, I guess. Zieglerville Road, Goshen Road, let's just talk about Goshen Road and everything in the Cedar Hill community. What portion of those roads were dedicated to the township? And did that include all the parking areas at every one of them buildings?
I guess maybe I'm the best one to answer that. The cartway of the road from curb to curb, to my recollection, the road from curb to curb was dedicated to the township. The parking areas are private.
Okay, so in other words, the homeowners are responsible for the parking area.
Correct.
Okay. The reason I commented on that is we had a similar circumstance in the Spring Mountain Townhome community where parking became an issue, and we lined the curb for parking spaces, and that then eliminated any additional need for parking, let's say like on Cedar Road. So if the Cedar Hill community would, but they're not because they own paint lines on the curb for parking spaces, that would alleviate any need for any additional parking on Cedar Hill Road.
Okay. Is there any other comment for the engineer before we move on? No? Public Works.
For the month of March, I took Carol's sketch of the tabletops, and I estimate it's going to cost us about between $3,400 and $4,000 to do the installation of them with the painting, the signage, and everything, using the equipment. And we hope to have them in by June. We had 3 sewer inspections this month. We had 3 plow events. We were out cold patching several different times. The no parking signs were installed on Goshen and Berger Road. The school bus sign was installed on Zieglerville Road. We posted water shut-offs for the office. I met with Knight Brothers Tree Service about removal of a tree on Berger and Moorwood Avenue. Flow meters were calculated at the sewer plant. We put new auger and stuff, we got the snowplows ready to go for next year. And we ordered the new sliding board to replace the broken one at Goshen Park.
Do you have any other comment for Public Works? Thank you. We'll move on. Police, monthly report.
We have him reports. We'll double check.
All right.
I think it's good.
Township manager.
I hope I pronounced this correctly. Chop?
Cy Hockey.
All right. Okay. Cy Hockey. All right. Cy Hockey track update. On March the 7th, Carol and I met with representatives of Prestige Property Partners. The individual representing them was Sam Stanza, and he works for Van Cleef Engineering. Sam presented a potential housing development that Prestige Partners is proposing in that neck of the woods. They're looking at a possible 30 to 40 number of homes, but that's very, very, very early in the process. Carol shared our township records as they related to this available public sewers, particularly on Little Road. We identified where the existing water line locations were and similar types of infrastructure issues. We also identified to Sam the need for a conditional use hearing. More than likely, they would need a traffic study as well. We talked about the history of the area and the importance that the Board of Supervisors places on open space. So it was a very general meeting. At that point, he advised us that they'll go back to Prestige, the owners, discuss the details. They also had to go visit Schwenksville, the Schwenksville Authority, to get a better handle on the locations of the existing public water lines there. So simply put, they've got a lot of homework to do, and he did not state to us that he'd be back in a month or 2 or 3 months, but I did promise about a month ago when we advised the public of this meeting that I would give a public report as to what transpired. If there's any questions that I can answer, I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Bill.
Bill Robert. 107 Memorial
It's
Road.
not the owner. They went back to the builder. They don't own it yet. Cy Hockey's there.
How are they going to get the sewage? The all goes down, they have to pump it back up, or are they going to?
Well, there were various options, Carol. I don't know if they really nailed one down. That should be one.
Sorry, what is your name?
Bill Robert.
They were looking at the manhole that's in Little Road, and when there was a Parkside development proposed years ago, they actually had a plan where they were reaching that manhole. So this engineer took back information to try and figure out whether or not he could drain everything to that manhole. So that's where they're starting. That's their starting point, at the manhole of Little Road that's not too far from the John Deere dealership.
They figure they can get gravity out of that?
That's their intent, yes.
Originally, pump station, 173. They took care of all those properties, so they were down to a pump station, 73.
There was,
Fire plug is, you go down the hill.
there was at one point discussion of a pump station along the Scioto Creek for that entire watershed area, but that's not what they're looking at right now. They're looking at staying on the top of the hill and can they gravity to Little Road. And that's going to be their determination to make.
Any other questions? Okay.
Next, before you, recommending that the board approve a corporate authorization resolution. It's a resolution that is generically worded, and it allows the board to open any deposits or shared accounts in the name of the township, and to endorse checks and orders for the payment of money and other withdrawals and transfers of funds. The purpose of this resolution is to allow the board to quickly take money from one of our lending institutions, for example, Victory Bank, where we have most of our money, and invest it in a CD in another FDIC-insured institution. You recall we had been talking about setting up a program. We have some money that we have from the bond issue that we're moving, as we speak, from Fulton Bank into Victory Bank. And then at that point, what's been happening over the last week, the treasurer and I have been identifying CD opportunities, and we will have a more specific plan for you very shortly, and we'll be coming to you with opportunities. And by adopting this resolution, what we're saying is that it says one signature, I'm going to change that to 2 signatures so we're clear. Okay? So with 2 signatures or 2 board member approvals, we'll be able to secure that CD. That, simply put, that's what's going on.
I've got a question. It says, now we resolve Univest and Fulton Bank. Should that be Victory Bank?
Actually, yes. I think, oh, no, I'm sorry. That's another resolution. That's coming up next. Okay. I threw yeah, it's the one that we signed earlier. Remember we signed this?
Okay.
Yes. I'm sorry, I apologize. I threw that in as we're doing the second. If it pleases the board, would you
Make a motion.
Also move.
I'll second. Any questions? Go for a vote. Aye.
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 And the second item is to establish what we have now. We have Univest Bank and Fulton as depositories. So this is simply is a bookkeeping move. Perhaps we should have done it earlier. The money was in there. So just to clean things up and tighten things up, our recommendation is to adopt this resolution.
A motion.
Also move.
I'll second. Any questions? A vote? Aye.
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 All right, we have a request from Schwenksville Borough. They will be celebrating their Community Day on Saturday, May the 4th from 7:30 to 2, and they are requesting assistance from our fire police. So if it pleases the board, they ask that you approve of that request.
Also move.
I'll second. Any questions? Go for a vote. Aye.
Aye.
It's an aye.
And finally, we have closed the loop on the firefighters' tax credit program. You recall we were discussing this at our last meeting. The board approved the eligibility list. We will be, now there's two pieces to this. The volunteers will be receiving a rebate of their already paid property tax. And we'll be issuing them checks very shortly for that. The earned income tax was a little trickier. There was more paperwork involved. We did, though, send the certified register to Berkheimer. Berkheimer handles the collection. And the volunteers, we then gave the volunteers the forms that they need to submit with their tax filing. And we alerted Berkheimer as to who the eligible volunteers were. So it's then volunteers package their documents with their, they can't e-file, with their income tax form. Berkheimer sees that and gives them a credit to their tax up front. So a lot of paper, a lot of effort, but at this point, it looks like, as I said, we've closed the loop. And I did make sure that the volunteers, if they have any problems, would contact me. But so far, so good.
Do we have any comment for the township manager? Yeah.
I have a question regarding Doris Swanson, 19 San Francisco Road. I have a question from your first subject, the name of the tract. When did that go from Melbourne Hills to this new name, and what changed?
That's not Melbourne Hills.
It's not Melbourne Hills.
This property is on Little Road.
Well, up Little Road,
Yes.
it's not the one on 29.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comment? Bob, want to go forward?
It's real quick. I just wanted to know, I thought Terry was going to talk about that Village Drive email.
Yeah, well, I can do that. It's okay. Do you want me to read it?
Please.
Okay.
Please.
Oh, sure. I have it dated March 28th. Dear Board of Supervisors, after receiving many calls and emails from our residents on their inability to safely exit from both ends of Aspen Way onto Village Drive, we are requesting Lower Frederick Township to consider restricting parking on the entire length of Village Drive to parking on